Welcome back. All right, so we're going to do a video now on the LA Kings. I have no idea. I'm straight up saying I have no idea. Now, the Kings, a team that I couldn't stand 5 or 6 years ago. And now, honestly, they got a lot of good young players, a lot of guys that I like. Here's your dark horse. Dark horses are a tough call, but this to me is the obvious dark horse. If things fall in the Kings' favor this year, with the Pacific Division being as wide open as it is, if you want to call it weak, okay, fine. But when I look at this division and I go, okay, Calgary, Vancouver, Seattle, LA, I could make an argument for any of them being third. I could make an argument for any of them being sixth. In LA's case, I'm taking the easy way out. Absolutely, the easy way out is saying they'll finish sixth. So I'm going with the easy way out, while in the back of my mind thinking this one could age really, really poorly. The LA Kings are very interesting, and we'll get into that. We'll talk about the special teams first. They're 19th on the power play last season at 18.9%. Not a huge surprise, right? Because they did struggle to score. Their penalty kill was pretty good, 83.7%, which was 7th. So that's a mild surprise, because when you look at their goals for, they were 27th in the league at 142 goals, and their goals against, they were 21st at 169. So penalty kill was good, but their overall goals against was not. So 5-on-5 just allowing too many goals, right? This is a team, though, that it feels like is poised to perhaps get a lot better quickly. Could happen quickly. So their notable draft picks since 2015, Chernak, drafted 43rd overall in 2015. Of course, now he's in Tampa. Matt Roy, 194th overall. That's a steal. 2016, they drafted Clegg, 51st overall. 2017, they drafted Gabe Vilardi, 11th overall. Anderson Dolan was drafted 41st overall, and Mikey Anderson was drafted 103rd. As they compile their Andersons, and they didn't sign Freddie Anderson, which it's right there. You know, they could have had, there was so much Anderson potential there, and they just didn't get it. Kupari's their number 20 pick in 2018. Akil Thomas, 51st overall. 2019, Turcotte's the number 5 pick. Bjornfot is 22nd, and Kaliev 33rd. So there's three guys, pretty decent upside to all three. 2020, they drafted Byfield at number 2 and Helge Grans at 35. And then this year, they drafted Brent Clark at number 8. He's already signed his entry-level contract. You'd have to think he's not in the lineup right away. But again, LA is fascinating to me. So their exits, you got what, McDermott? There's not a lot here that's changed, and yet the new faces, each one of them brings some interesting potential. So Danault, there's your shutdown center. He should bring your goals against down. He's going to bring your face-off numbers up. It should help a lot. Arvidsson, potentially 20 goal scorer, maybe 30, and so that would help the goals for. Edler, defensively, as long as he's not being asked to do too much, he absolutely helps the Kings. Again, it's about bringing that goals against down. So the Kings went with some pretty strategic spots here when it came to their picks. They pick up a winger in Arvidsson, a center in Danault, and a defenseman in Edler. All of them veterans, and this is a team that could definitely use that. So their last 3 years, no playoffs for the Kings over the last 3 years. 2018-2019, they finished 31, 42, and 9. They were 8th, last in the Pacific. 2019-2020, they were 29, 35, and 6, 7th in the Pacific. This year, they end up finishing 21, 28, and 7, which was 6th in the West. But they were in the hunt until late in the season. St. Louis did turn it on, took that spot away from the Kings as well as the Coyotes. But the Kings were right in there. So while they're 6th and they're below 500, again, I think this is a team that could be ready to really blow things up in the Pacific. So we look at their forward group. You've got Iafallo, Kopitar, and Brown. Now, Brown, unreliable at this stage, the amount of offense that one might want from him, but he's still a good veteran presence. Kopitar, you can set your watch by him. He's very reliable. Kempe, Danault, and Arvidsson are going to be fascinating. So if Kempe's playing with Danault and Arvidsson, that could be a very interesting trio right there. Arvidsson, the goal scorer. Danault, not a guy who had goals, but he had 19 assists last season, so it's possible that those guys together could work. So that's your likely top 6. And then you have Athanasiou, Vilardi, Moore, right? Outside the top 6, probably filling out the top 9. Then you have Brendan Lemieux, Lizotte, Wagner, and then you got your extras, potentially Grundstrom, Anderson. Elias Anderson could end up in the lineup regularly. Anderson Dolan, I think, is good enough to play regularly. And then you have the young guys. You've got Byfield, who looked ready at the end of the year. He should be in the lineup. Kupari may very well be ready. Kaliev looked good in very, very brief moments there that he got a chance to play for the Kings. He made those moments count. And then you have Fir there as well for the Kings. So there's a lot of depth there. There are a lot of interesting storylines. So if Byfield comes in and if he's good, Kaliev's ready to take his spot as a goal scorer, this whole top six is open. Brown could end up on like a third line, and things could end up being completely different. Deno could end up on the third line as well, and Byfield could end up on one of the top two lines. And that's where this team's really unpredictable. Really, really hard to say what is most likely to take place. So again, recency bias will tell you, well, they were outside the playoffs, so I'll take them to be outside the playoffs again. And this is something I've talked about when I'm doing previews and when we get into seasons and there's these surprises. Recency bias is the thing. If a team made the playoffs in 2019, you're probably going to take them to make the playoffs again in 2020. And again, if a team misses the playoffs, you'll probably take them to miss the playoffs again. So we look at their defense, and this is where, again, there's some uncertainty here. So Mikey Anderson, one of the best kept secrets on the blue line in the NHL. Drew Doughty, who takes a lot of flack because of his contract, but he's still a very good defenseman. Bjorn Focht, who might be ready to take that next step. Roy, also underrated. Edler, again, if they don't overtax Edler, that's a good pickup. And Sean Walker, which leaves Mata, Wolanin, Clegg, Strand, Dursey, guys who are fighting it out to try to get themselves a spot in the lineup for opening night. It's a good group on the blue line, and it is one of the reasons, though, why I'm still leaning towards sixth. This is a team that I think this year, unlike last year, they might score a lot of goals. I don't know if they're going to prevent a lot of goals. Dano has been brought in to do that. Edler's been brought in to help with that. We'll see whether or not that's the case. In net, Peterson and Quick. Your tandem again. This time Peterson expected to get the lion's share of starts. And Sparks is most likely to be the number 3, the guy that they call up if they need to in the case of an injury. But, we'll see. We'll see what the Kings' long-term plans are. This is a big year for Cal Peterson. This is a year where it feels like there's some pressure on him. And so if Peterson's numbers aren't great, or if he has an off year, it's possible that Rob Blake at the end of this year says, well, we've got to find a permanent solution in net. Cal's a nice guy, but so for Peterson, this is a big year. I like Peterson a lot. I do hope that he excels and does quite well for the Kings, because for anybody who's followed this channel over the last 5 years, I've really developed an affinity for a lot of the young players that the Kings have, or in Peterson's case, guys who are getting that chance to break through. So their prospects list, it's all defensemen at the top of this list I made up here. So you've got Brant Clark, who's signed. I don't think Clark plays this year, but it's possible. Brock Faber, Helga Grans, unlikely. And then up front, Akil Thomas is a good foil here, but he's probably going to need more time in the minors. And then Alex Turcotte is this wild card out of the whole thing too. Once Turcotte is ready, whenever that takes place, and he joins this lineup, and you've got Byfield and you've got Kaliev, the Kings could be one of the more exciting, fun, young teams to watch in the National Hockey League. They have that potential. And they still have the potential to fall out of the playoffs, end up 6th in the division, and maybe win themselves a draft lottery this year, and draft first, which would be absolutely ridiculous. It would be adding more to where they've already got a lot of strength in their forward group when it comes to the young players. So we'll see if that's the case, right? So the Cup odds currently are at 66-1. Interestingly enough, they opened at 50-1 and dropped to 66-1. I can't think of what changed other than just people liking other teams more. But yeah, their odds have actually got longer. Their last Stanley Cup, of course, 2014. They won in 2012. They won in 2014. They're looking to get back there. And again, I am predicting them to be 6th, but it is wide open. So their October schedule, not really a gimme schedule. So they're at home against Vegas on the 14th to open the season. Vegas and LA. LA actually at home has a good chance in that one. Then they're at home against Minnesota on the 16th. So a team that was in their division this past season won't be this coming season. Then they go to Nashville on the 19th. They're in Dallas on the 22nd, so there's a nice break in between those games. Then the next night they're in St. Louis, and then on the 25th they're in St. Louis again. So that's a back-to-back. I don't see very many of those on the schedule at all, but there's one right there where they play on the 23rd and the 25th. So it's 3 games in 4 nights, but it's only in 2 different locations. So St. Louis, both of their home games against LA are back-to-backs in October. Then on the 28th, they're at home against Winnipeg, and then on the 30th, they're at home against Montreal. So this is not an easy schedule by any stretch, but it will be interesting to see if they can win half of these games, keep themselves in it, and that's really what you're looking for if you're a Kings fan right now. I really still think that their breakthrough is likely next year, but again, the Pacific, you've got the other 2 California teams, you've got an expansion team in Seattle, you've got a Vancouver team that has had trouble with underachieving before, you've got the Flames coming off a season where they underachieved as well. It is possible that the LA Kings find themselves in a playoff spot this season. And it may be playoff spot this season and then really, really good team next season. But it really is all over the place. This, I think, is the one that I'm most torn on. Because there is a part of me that looks at this overall roster and says, this team could be third. But there's so many things that have to fall in place for them to finish third that I can't say that and stick to that. And so again, chicken out, go with recency bias and say 6th, but they're going to be a lot of fun to watch this year, which has not always been the case with the Kings over the last 3 seasons. They've been kind of miserable to watch over some of the last 3 years. This year should be fun. Whether or not it's winning fun, that remains to be seen. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below as always. And yes, I chose this jersey today because it's been retired. They're doing away with this jersey as a third, and we'll see what else they come up with. They won't be using the reverse retro again. That reverse retro was a one-off. They're not using that design again. So there you go. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. Don't forget to hit like and subscribe if you're browsing your way through. You just happened upon this video. And yes, this is one team I'm really anxious to see how they do this year because I really like what they've done. But we'll see. Thank you guys so much for all your support. I'll talk to you again soon.